Ever feel like you're stuck, like in a rut, like surrounded by all this luxury, but totally stifled,
Oh, yeah.
yearning for some, I don't know, intellectual stimulation,
Mm-hmm.
for a real connection, for a chance to, to make a difference?
Right.
That was Queen Caroline Matilda of Denmark in the 1700s.
Yeah, it's a story right out of a period drama, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Forbidden romance,
Yes.
court intrigue, ideological clashes.
And a tragic downfall, of course.
Of course.
But it also, kind of makes you think about some bigger questions
Yeah.
about power, progress, the risks we take for love, for change. So buckle up. Today we're diving deep into the life of Queen Caroline Matilda and her affair with, well, the physician who briefly ruled Denmark.
This is a good one, yeah. Dr. Johann Friedrich Struensee.
To really get this story, we need to go back to 18th century Denmark.
Okay.
Imagine, right, a society steeped in tradition, monarchy is everything, and change is just barely starting to like whisper through intellectual circles in Europe. This is the Enlightenment, right?
This is it, yeah.
Thinkers like Locke, Rousseau,
Mm-hmm.
they're like challenging authority, pushing for individual liberty, separation of powers.
Right.
Pretty radical stuff. I bet those in power weren't too
Oh,
thrilled.
yeah, super dangerous. But in Denmark, things were a little more complicated.
Oh, how so?
Well, King Christian VII, Caroline Matilda's husband, he was really troubled. Yeah. Mental illness, maybe schizophrenia, who knows, but he couldn't really rule.
So there's this power vacuum just waiting to be filled. And in steps, Dr. Struensee, a man embodying the Enlightenment. Right place, right time. Or is there more to it?
Yeah, he's definitely in the right place at the right time, but it's never that simple, is it? I mean, Struensee's rise to power, it wasn't exactly straightforward.
Right.
I mean, he started as the king's physician, a commoner from Germany with all these radical ideas. The Danish elite, they were definitely raising eyebrows at this guy.
But he must have had something, charisma or intelligence, to gain such influence over the king, especially with his mental state.
Yeah.
What was it about Struensee that made him so compelling?
Well, from what we know, he was brilliant, ambitious, really committed to those Enlightenment ideals, and apparently very charming, persuasive. He could explain complicated things, make them sound interesting and easy to understand.
Got it. So he wins over the king. But what about the queen? A young queen in a loveless marriage, I bet a guy like Struensee would seem pretty appealing.
Totally. Caroline Matilda was only 15 when she married Christian. It was all political, arranged by her brother, King George III of England. Just imagine, right, a foreign court married to a man who's emotionally and physically distant and all these stuffy court rituals. It's no wonder she found comfort in someone like Struensee. He was smart, paid attention to her.
And of course, their relationship becomes more than just friendship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Scandalous.
Oh, yeah, big time. The whole court was buzzing about it. It was a huge deal. I mean, this was the 1700s. A queen's infidelity, that's not just personal, it threatens the whole monarchy.
And yet they keep going,
Yeah.
driven by their passion for those Enlightenment ideals and, well, wanting to make some real change in Denmark. It's wild how a forbidden romance could have such huge political implications.
It's amazing, isn't it? And the thing is, Struensee, he wasn't content with just being the queen's lover.
Right.
He saw this chance, this opportunity to use his influence to really make Denmark a more just and equitable place. As the king's mental state got worse, Struensee basically became the ruler.
So he went from treating the king's ailments to treating an entire nation. That's a big jump. What changes did he actually make?
Oh, he got right to work. Over 1,000 reforms during his time in power, covering social issues, political stuff, economic things, the whole spectrum.
Wow.
He abolished torture, which was, pretty common back then.
Yeah, it was.
He gave freedom of the press. People could actually speak their minds, criticize the government. He reformed the education system, made it accessible to more people.
It's like a revolutionary.
He even tried to limit the power of the nobility.
How'd it go over?
Not well. He, cut back their privileges, made policies that helped the peasantry. The nobles, they were not happy.
Yeah, I bet not. So now we have the stage set, right?
Yeah.
Tradition versus change. Struensee and Caroline Matilda leading the charge.
Exactly. A classic tale of ambition, idealism, and challenging the powers that be. And as we'll see in the next part of our deep dive, the consequences, well, they were swift and brutal.
It's wild to think, one guy, not even from Denmark, rises to such power in a place so bound by tradition.
Right.
But it shows, I guess, that sometimes it's the outsiders who see things most clearly, the things, that need fixing.
Yeah, totally. They aren't stuck in the same old way of thinking.
Yeah.
They can, like, imagine new possibilities, but that outsider thing, it can make you a target too, especially if you're, shaking up who's got the power.
And for Struensee, yeah, that whole scandal with the Queen didn't help.
Oh, definitely not.
To balance court politics and push radical reforms, man, talk about pressure.
Intense, right. And the court, it was all whispers and secrets.
Oh, yeah.
His enemies, they were always looking for a way to take him down.
So they go to the king's stepmother, the Queen Dowager, right?
Huh?
She probably wasn't a fan of Struensee to begin with.
Oh, yeah, she saw him as a threat.
To her power, to her influence.
For sure.
So start spreading rumors about Struensee, paint him as some, I don't know, power-hungry schemer using the Queen.
Exactly. Poisoning the king, trying to steal the throne, anything to make him look bad.
Classic. And of course, they use his reforms against him,
Of course.
saying he's destroying traditions, undermining the monarchy. It's crazy how good ideas get twisted to make people scared and resentful,
Isn't it?
especially when those in charge feel like their power's slipping away.
Yeah, totally.
It's like Struensee was speaking a whole different language.
Like a language of progress?
Of enlightenment.
That the Danish elite, they just didn't get it?
And that's the sad part, isn't it? He was ahead of his time.
He was.
Those ideas, too radical for 18th century Denmark?
Yeah.
He underestimated how much people wanted things to stay the same.
Yeah, he did. And the power of those who benefit from the old ways.
So, okay, how does it all fall apart? Was there one specific event that, led to his arrest?
The Queen Dowager, with some angry nobles, they staged a coup.
Ah, right.
They took over the palace, arrested both Struensee and Caroline Matilda.
Treason, adultery, the usual charges.
The whole works.
And the king. Did he try to help protect his wife, his advisor?
He wasn't really in any shape to, his mental state was worse. He was basically controlled by his stepmother and her buddies. Just a puppet king, really, to make the coup look legit.
Awful. So what happens to Struensee and Caroline Matilda? Happy ending, I'm guessing, is off the table.
Yeah, not a happy ending.
Okay.
Struensee, he was imprisoned, given a show trial, and executed. And not a clean execution either. Pretty brutal, even for back then.
Oh, no.
Drawn and quartered, his body put on display. A warning to anyone thinking of, challenging the monarchy.
A horrible end for someone trying to make things better. It shows, I guess, progress can be really costly.
It can.
And that those who push for it, well, they can pay a big price.
Yeah, they do.
What about Caroline Matilda? What's her fate?
Less violent, but just as sad.
Okay.
She had to confess to adultery. They took away her kids, sent her to some remote castle in Germany. She died there a few years later, only 23.
It's heartbreaking. A woman with so much potential, wanting to make a difference, and just crushed by those holding on to the old ways.
It is, isn't it?
It's like Struensee's reforms were too much, too fast. He didn't have time to, get people on his side, show them why these changes were good.
He didn't, did he? It was all very top-down. He thought he could just use the king's power to make things happen. But he forgot about public opinion, about getting people to agree with what he was doing.
If he'd taken it slower, maybe.
Maybe.
Built some alliances, explained his reforms to people, maybe he would have had more success.
Maybe. It's hard to know. He was under a lot of pressure. His enemies were always circling. Who knows if a different approach would have changed anything?
But it does make you think about how change happens, doesn't it? Is it better to push hard, push fast, even if people fight back? Or take it slow, bit by bit?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Philosophers, revolutionaries, they've been arguing about it forever.
Yeah.
No easy answer. Sometimes you need radical change to break down the old, unfair system. But sometimes slow and steady wins the race. Gives people time to adjust, see the good in the new ideas.
It seems like the reformers who do the best, they're the ones who find that balance.
Totally.
Pushing for change while understanding how people in society work.
Yeah, understanding the context, the power dynamics, knowing that some people will push back, building relationships, convincing those who doubt you, finding common ground, and realizing that change, it takes time.
Yeah.
It's a process, not an event. You need patience, persistence, gotta be ready to adjust when things don't go your way.
So where does that leave Struensee? What's his legacy? He was brilliant, visionary, even if most of what he did got undone after he was gone.
He definitely left his mark on Denmark, didn't he?
He did.
His story shows us that progress, it's not a straight line, it's messy, it's hard, but it also shows that even when things go wrong, there are always people who dream of a better world.
And who are brave enough to risk everything to make it happen.
Exactly.
And what about Caroline Matilda? How do we remember her? Just a pawn in Struensee's game, or a woman defying the rules of her time?
Historians still debate that.
Oh, really?
Some say she was just a victim manipulated by a powerful man. Others say she was searching for control, for fulfillment, in a world that didn't give women much of either.
It's interesting to think, how her story might be different if she'd lived now,
Right.
when women have more choices, more chances to learn, to express themselves.
Absolutely. Her story shows how much the times we live in shape our lives,
Yeah.
but it's also about the strength of the human spirit, the ability to love, to hope, even when things are tragic.
That's powerful.
It is, isn't it?
So both Struensee and Caroline Matilda, their stories, they're about wanting connection, wanting meaning, wanting a world where people can live up to their full potential.
They are, yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it, how even after centuries, their story still gets people talking.
It does.
Makes us question, what progress really is, how individuals change history.
It's the thing about history, right? It's not just dates and names. It's about people, about their ambition, their love, their betrayals. The fight between, holding on to the old and embracing the new.
And what's really interesting, I think, is how Struensee, because he was an outsider,
Yeah.
he saw what was wrong with Denmark in a way that the people who grew up there, maybe they just couldn't or wouldn't.
He wasn't bound by the same rules, the same connections.
Right.
Sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees,
Yeah. It's like he had, I don't know, X-ray vision or something. He saw the cracks in their society.
He did. And he was bold enough to try and fix them, to rebuild everything based on his ideas.
But we saw what happened, right?
Yeah,
Being bold isn't enough if you don't really get how complicated things are.
exactly. Like a surgeon doing this major operation, but they don't really understand the body, how it all works together.
He had the skills, the knowledge, the tools, but maybe not the wisdom,
Yeah,
not enough patience or the ability to kind of adjust his plans as he went.
right. He was so focused on his vision, maybe he couldn't see what was right in front of him.
Do you think it would have been different if he was more, I don't know, practical?
It's possible, maybe if he'd worked with the system instead of against it.
Instead of trying to change everything all at once.
Yeah,
But then again, maybe that huge shakeup was what they needed
maybe.
to plant the seeds for change that would grow later on.
It's like throwing a pebble into a pond, right? The splash is big, but the ripples, they keep going even after the pebble sinks.
I like that. So those ripples for Struensee, those were the Enlightenment ideas. Individual liberty, free speech, fairness for everyone. They kept spreading even after he was gone.
They did.
It makes you think, that what we do can have consequences long after we're gone, and not always in the ways we expect.
That's true.
We might never really know the full impact of our choices, good or bad.
That's the thing about history.
Yeah. And it's not just kings and queens, right?
No.
It's about anyone who stands up, who fights for what they believe in, who changes the world, even if it ends in tragedy.
Exactly.
Their story, Caroline Matilda and Struensee, it's a reminder that history is made by people like them. People who question the way things are, who fight for what they think is right, and who leave their mark, even if it's a mark of sorrow.
It is a powerful story, isn't it? Makes you think.
It does. It really does. It's made me think a lot about, I guess, what real power is, how change happens, and how those who dream big, they never really disappear.
And it makes me appreciate how stories can take us to different times, make us question what we believe, and remind us that we're all connected, even across centuries.
We'd love to know what you thought, what parts of this story stuck with you.
Yeah, join the conversation over on our socials.
And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future deep dives. Until next time.